Hi, I'm Lovely, and today I'm going to rank one of my favorite shows, third to be exact, Fear the Walking Dead. Spoilers ahead for all Walking Dead content. I love this show on all 8 of its seasons. Out of all the Walking Dead stuff that's out there, this is by far my favorite. Some context before I go into the ranking, I got into Fear the Walking Dead right when it came out. I was there day 1 and stopped watching after season 2. I wasn't feeling it at the time. Then, when the crossover was announced, I bought all of season 3 and binged it at work. Loved it and patiently waited for season 4 to come out. Watched all of that as it was coming out, and I was back to being a fan of Fear. Then in season 5 I stopped watching it again. If we want to get specific, it was the episode where Alicia got the radioactive blood on her. I couldn't take the idea of losing another character from the family, so I just stopped. I would always hear about stuff going on in the series, Dwight and Sherry reuniting, John Dorie dying, a nuke going off, etc. While very intriguing, it never brought me back. Then it was announced. Madison's return in Season 7. It took me a while, but once I got the motivation, I decided to catch up on the series, and goddamn did I catch up. I watched 107 episodes, Season 1 through 8A, in the span of 2 months. It was quite the binge. Anyway, I finally caught up on Fear the Walking Dead, and I even made reaction videos to the final 6 episodes. It really was an experience, and while I was ready for it, I was still heartbroken to finish and say goodbye to the series. Anyway, that's a little context from my experience. Let's get into the ranking. I should also add that I have watched the main show. I've actually watched all of the shows and have read the comics, but they don't interest me as much. I may make a video on them in the future, but for now, I'm okay. Fear is what really interests me. I should also clarify that this won't be super in-depth. I might go in-depth with certain parts of each season, but this is not going to be a full breakdown of the characters or story. Sometimes, yeah. Most of the time, though, it'll just be me saying, oh, this is good, or oh, this is bad. Thank you. Let's get started with ranking all 8 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead. Number 8, Season 8. This season is messy. I'll start with the bad first. I don't like Padre too much, more specifically Shrike and Ben. I'm not into their motivations as antagonists. Like, they lost their dad, and because of that, they separate children from their families so they won't ever feel that loss. While I can understand it, I think it's really goofy, especially considering this is one of the final antagonists of the show / Walking Dead universe. Something like this can work very early on in the series, but not this late into the game. It really doesn't work for me. They weren't the only ones that suffered from weak motivations though. We also have Troy. His motivations for not liking Madison are a bit much. He blames her for the death of Tracy's mother because Madison's words motivated her to do some good, and she got killed for it. He also still blames her and her family for what happened on the farm back in Season 3. While yes, it works and makes sense enough, it's still kinda goofy to me. I think something that really helps both of these antagonists is the fact that their stories are so short. Shrike and Ben are only in the story for 6 episodes, for the most part, and it's the same with Troy. His story with his people covers only 6 episodes. While I might be bothered by their stories, they're over pretty quick. Like, yeah, this Padre stuff rubs me the wrong way, but in a couple hours or so, because I'm binging, it'll be over, so whatever. That's it though when it comes to the bad, for the most part. Let's talk about the good things that come from this season because there's a good chunk of awesome. First, Madison is back. Yes, she is a bit messy, but that is the Madison I love. She is a mother. Second, Morgan's send-off. I didn't think much of Morgan's character in The Walking Dead. Like, other than Claire, I don't think he was given the best material to work with. But in Fear, I just fell in love with him, and some of the best things with this character come from this series and this season. We get the return of Kings County, Dwayne, Jenny, we get to see Claire Morgan again. Like, damn, I mean it. His last episode is so good. Whoever edited this sequence where he would just see red, you deserve a medal. It was awesome. We also get to see Eastman referenced again. This made me so happy as a fan, and I can't wait to see what Morgan and Mo are up to in the future. Other things I found nice about this season? I think it's very appropriate that it ends here. A lot of shows go on too long or that kind of thing, and while this season is my least favorite of the show, I also think it ends perfectly here lengthwise. For real, I am a big fan. I also really love the ending of this show. It's my favorite ending to a series so far in the Walking Dead universe, with the comic ending for the main show being right behind it. I don't know if it's going to be topped. I found it really satisfying, and while the season is incredibly messy, I still love it. It could have been better in a lot of places, but I was very happy. Madison and Alicia reunited, Strand has a family now, Daniel is with Luciana and Skidmark, June's going to John's cabin, Dwight and Sherry help kids or something. It's nice. In 7th place, Season 4. This one is rough. Like with Season 8 though, I want to get the bad out of the way quickly because I do actually have some nice things to say about this season. So first, watching this as it was coming out was certainly a memorable experience. It was like watching something you love get ripped apart very slowly. It was brutal. Slower pacing, Nick's death, Madison's death, this lady. Again, her motivations aren't the worst, like they make sense, but I think a character like her as a main villain, this late into the Walking Dead universe, kinda goofy. It also doesn't help that she's the antagonist that comes right after Negan if you're watching all of the shows. Other than that though, I actually don't hate this season. It's definitely the low point of the series, but as a season 1 to this new take on Fear, it isn't all bad. First, the new intro. I love this intro. It's my favorite intro out of anything I've ever watched. It's iconic, you can do a ton of things with it, and I would look forward to it every week. The intro during the first 3 seasons wasn't bad at all, but I don't think this one is either. I think it fits the new tone of the show, and I really do love it. We also have some new characters, and god are they good. John Dorie, Al, June, Charlie, Morgan. These are some of the best characters in the whole Walking Dead universe. Like, that's incredible. While yes, there are some of the worst things in this season, it pulls off a lot. Losing Nick and Madison was tough. They were my favorite characters in the series, and yeah, it was sad, wrong, and a whole bunch of things. But honestly, I really loved their stories and how they went out. Nick. He's someone that shouldn't have died, but I think that what they give him in episode 3 is beautiful. It's a bit of that classic revenge storyline. He wants to kill this dude for killing his mom, valid, but because of that he gets killed by Charlie. There is a lot more there, but I'm keeping it simple. I want to note now, by the way, that the writers have a thing for kids shooting beloved characters. Anyway, he dies. And it's rough, but the stuff with the blue bonnets and everything, beautiful. I really can't hate on it. I do think it's unfortunate that Alicia doesn't get a lot to work with in saying goodbye to him. Like in the moment it works, and it still kind of does. But writing-wise, she just says, "It's gonna be okay, Nick, no," over and over. It's a little silly. Now we have Madison. I think the story of her sacrificing herself to save her family is incredibly depressing, and I'm sorry, but I do also kinda love it. Even if she lives after this, it doesn't take away from it. Madison is a mother who will do anything to protect her kids. That is Madison. It is odd to know that Crane and Shrike are like 5 feet away during all of this, but I'm okay not thinking about that. Anyway, the good stuff doesn't stop there. I actually kind of like the second half of this season. I could skip the first episodes a bit too slow for me, but the rest is kind of fun. It kind of feels like a classic zombie movie. We have a small crew of people in a city getting pushed further and further into a corner as they run from a horde and deal with a weirdo. It's kind of nice. It gets overshadowed a bit by 4A because of the Nick and Madison stuff, but sometimes I prefer it over that. In conclusion, while very boring and messy at points, I think it's still enjoyable. Again, it's definitely the low point, but shrug. That isn't a secret. I also want to add that I kind of dig the vultures. It's not a bad first go when it comes to antagonists from these writers. They certainly only make sense going against the characters in Fear. Like, could you imagine these guys going against Alexandria? They'd be dead in a second. They're kinda goofy, but I love them. I also almost forgot to mention, I'll cover it super quickly, the crossover event. Rough on a first go, but in the long run, I don't mind it. Morgan joins the series and he kinda becomes a new lead of the show after a bit, which honestly, is very fair for the character. The TV universe started with him and Rick. Like, we're literally calling these things walkers because of him. It makes sense that he'd be the lead of one of the shows. Maybe he shouldn't have taken over an already established show or whatever, but like I said, in the long run, I am okay with it. We get a good amount of references to the main series from him, and we also even get to see Rick in this season along with Carol and Jesus. Can you believe that we can say Rick and Nick were in an episode together? Wow. Okay, I better stop complimenting this season. I can tell I'm doing a bit too much. In summary, boring and messy, but not the worst. Let's get to the next one. In 6th place, Season 5. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this season. It's really good, but also super boring after the first or second watch. That really is the only complaint I have for it. I wasn't bothered by the don't kill stuff that infects this season. In fact, I actually really enjoyed it. I never cared for that type of storyline in anything, but the season made me get it a bit more. It really felt like we were losing if we were to kill. It was also interesting to see how they navigated conflicts considering our go-to solution to all of them would be to kill. It was nice. Honestly, this season is filled with a lot of cool stuff. The vibe is a lot better than Season 4, and we even start to get a little color back. We get Daniel back, and we even get Dwight here as well. Dwight was already fantastic in The Walking Dead, and god is he still fantastic here. His first episode back was amazing. I'm really glad they decided to pair his story with John and June. Genuinely, what a very smart decision. Also, I want to note, we start to get a little bit silly in this season, and I, for one, welcome it. We have the San Antonio split and the beer bottle hot air balloon as some big examples of this. I love it. I know a lot of people say it's a bit too much or doesn't make much sense, but I really do think people need to learn how to have fun, just a tiny bit. This is great. Like, the alternative is our characters stabbing 2 walkers in the head. Okay, we've done and seen that thousands of times. I'm glad to get something fun/new. I can understand not liking the tone, but personally, I vibe with it. Also, the beer bottle. Again, have fun, this is a hilarious visual. If anything, make fun of how they show that they're about to crash. That's silly. We got like the tiniest bit of funny last season with the walkers getting pulled up by the hurricane, and I'm glad they felt comfortable enough going even further than that in this season. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but it works for me. I'm a big fan. Oh yeah, we also get the CRM along with the start of the beer lady storyline. These were welcomed additions as well. Again, most of the season is fantastic, but its biggest flaw is that it's almost unwatchable after a couple watches, at least for me. If I had to think of things I don't really like, it really is just a couple of things. The storyline with the kids is somewhat pointless, just somewhat though. I think despite the kids completely disappearing after this season, I think we get a lot of necessary character stuff in 5A. I mean, Alicia gets hit with radioactive blood and Grace joins the crew. That's some pretty big stuff. It might still be kind of pointless, but I think the ride is pretty fun in 5A, especially the finale, so I'm okay with it. The other thing I kind of didn't like, at least on a first viewing, was the Virginia stuff. I don't think I vibed with the idea that we were leading into another conflict where we're just fighting someone who's bad. I know there's a lot more there, of course, but I wasn't excited and didn't really like the end of the season too much on my first go. I mean, I even liked the season more than Season 6 initially. Of course, I feel a different way now, but I guess that's something I didn't like with this season. Anyway, Season 5 is just nice. Let's move on to what's in 5th place, which surprised even me. Also, the documentary episode was badass. That's all. In 5th place, Season 1. I love this season so much and I revisit it pretty often. Pretty much everything about it is incredible. The premiere, god, it's so good. Everything is so defined already. It might be a lot on a first watch, but on rewatch it's like, wow, they had the dynamics with every character figured out instantly. It's jaw-dropping, genuinely. We have Nick dealing with his addiction, and I mean it, the first episode tackles it perfectly. He thinks he's insane and losing it. His performance mixed with the music? Perfect. We also have Madison and Travis. They're both dumb in their own ways in this season, but I still love them. Alicia and Chris kind of just exist, but I like their characters still. Alicia is pissed at Nick, and that's pretty fun to watch. Chris is in need of some direction, and while they don't go into it too much, the signs of what's to come for him are there. It's awesome. These characters are very flawed, and I'm all about it. We also have Daniel and Strand. I'll say more on them later because they do a lot more in the future, but simply put, they're also pretty cool here. This season is amazing. The reason it's not higher is really because of the length. It's super short. It's not to say it's bad or anything, but the other seasons for me just have a lot more content to go into. This is a very short and sweet season and the complaints I have for it are very little. For real. There's like 2 things I don't like. I think the stuff with Travis exploring the church in the first episode is super boring, and I think the army stuff feels a tad generic, but like, that's it. Overall, a fantastic start to an amazing show. Let's get on to the next one. In 4th place, Season 7. I don't really know where to start with this one. It has its issues, but there's something about the vibe of it that I really like. The intros, the general atmosphere, it's crazy. There are some odd decisions from time to time when it comes to the writing, and it is pretty underdeveloped in some areas, but in general, I think it's pretty good. Let's talk about the stuff I don't like first. The antagonist. Not Strand, he's fantastic as always, but this guy, Arno. He really falls flat. Like, his addition to the story is really odd because he kinda just dies after distracting us for a bit. Like, he's not iconic despite doing iconic stuff like throwing walkers with explosives in them. He's kind of just there, and while yes, he's not supposed to serve as the main antagonist of this season, his inclusion is really odd, especially his exit. He dies pleading for his life. This is not the Arno we were dealing with this whole season. Simply put, it's kind of eh. Other stuff I don't like, there is genuine character assassination in this season. No, not Madison. I think the stuff with Madison, while odd, works. Enough. I'm talking about Luciana. She does one of the worst things a character has ever done in this show, and it is very questionable to say the least. Her character wasn't given a lot before, and I think she was given this plot to make up for that, but I don't think it makes sense for her character. Daniel broke down and told her that if she is lying about Ophelia being alive, it could really break him, and she does it anyway. Flawed characters are good. There are a lot of them in this show and universe, but I don't think it makes sense for this character to be flawed in this way. It almost ruins the character, if I'm being completely honest. It also doesn't help that they don't talk about this too much after. Daniel's just excited to see her again in Season 8B. I should say though that while it's not super acknowledged, there are points where you can kind of see Luciana thinking about what she did. Very subtle, but effective. Huge props to Danai Garcia. I think she plays the shame of the character beautifully past this moment. It's still not choice though. Anyway, I do have a lot more issues I think, but it's mostly silly stuff. I think the pacing is rough, but honestly, that along with the other things I just mentioned are a lot more bearable on a second watch. First watch though, very rough. What's Padre? Where's Alicia? Why are they making us wait 7 or so episodes to find out who the little girl is when it's kind of obvious who it is? Honestly, I don't know if I would have got through this season if I didn't know Madison was in its future. That was on my first watch though. Now I accepted a lot more and I actually kind of enjoyed the season a decent bit. I could even say if someone liked this more than Season 6, I would get it. Let's talk about the things I like now. Strand and Alicia. I think we hit the emotional high of the series with their story by the end of Alicia's last episode. It's so good. Seeing the characters break down about how much they love each other despite just going to war against one another was incredible. Even talking about it now makes me want to rewatch the episode. I think it's awesome, and it leads into one of the best reveals I've ever witnessed for a character, one that's been built up since Season 5. We discover the cure for the virus, radiation, and because of that, Alicia is the first character to ever survive a bite in the Walking Dead universe. Incredible. The show is constantly trashed by critics and the fandom. While understandable, I think there's a lot of times where it's just plain silly or disrespectful. To give a show that is this hated something so big makes my heart very happy. It's super respectful to not only the show but the character of Alicia. She has done so much and worked so hard to get to this point. She was overshadowed by Nick in and out of the show, and now she is currently the only known survivor of a zombie bite. Incredible, and what a surprising payoff. When she got the radioactive blood on her in Season 5, I thought she was a goner. I stopped watching. Then years passed and I heard she was still alive. I then made fun of the show because it's like they forgot about it. Then I go to watch it and oh my god. I can't tell you how much I cheered when she woke up on the beach. I could talk about it all day. Simply incredible. Then after that, Madison rightfully returns from the dead in the next episode. Jesus! The season really has a lot of things I love. I mean, I briefly mentioned him, but Strand. What a good choice for an antagonist. Coleman Domingo is an incredible actor and I hope to see him in more things. He's awesome. Let's talk about the choice to make him the villain through this season. Fantastic. In the Walking Dead universe, we get villains all the time and honestly they can be pretty hit or miss, especially this late into the universe. It's very easy for the motivations to be I'm bad, or I'm bad but I'm also kinda weird. That's not the case for him though. He's a super complicated character and we got his origin in the season before this. Choosing to make a main character that the fans have followed for years into the antagonist for a whole season is a very, very bold move, and I think they pulled it off pretty well. He's easily up there when it comes to the Walking Dead antagonist. Strand, amazing. I think that's it for the super in-depth thoughts for this season, so I'll talk about the other things I like, in a lightning round kind of fashion. Okay. Other things I liked about Season 7? Grace, Morgan, and Mo. Their story is so heavy. God damn, I love it. This is probably Grace's best season. Next, Owl and Bear Lady. They get a very good exit to the series and I'm very glad to know that they live happily ever after. Even more so if we consider the CRM disbanding in however many years after this season. Good for them. I hope they get their peace. Next, we're having twins. Emil's brother. What a fun way to get the actor back. The storyline with him losing Rufus because of his lust for revenge is honestly pretty good. Very sad, but pretty good. Also, just a note, kind of insane that this is the second time in the universe that we've had twins that were played by the same actor. Just funny to me that it happened twice. Okay, I said a lot more than I thought I would this season. Let's move on to the next one. Let's see what's in third place. Third place, Season 6. What don't I like about this season? Other than the pacing being kind of in some areas, this is a pretty perfect season. I don't have too much bad to say. We get some pretty badass stuff from Morgan. We have a really cute episode with Al and Dwight. John Dorie gets not only one of the best episodes in the whole Walking Dead universe, episode 4, but he also gets what is easily my favorite death in the whole Walking Dead universe in episode 8. It is executed pretty perfectly, oh my god. The shock, the music, the performance, his intro paralleling Rick Grimes' exit. Rick Grimes. That is how loved John Dorie was. His exit was beautiful. And that was only the first half of the season. After that, we have the stuff with Dakota killing her mother. That episode was incredible, by the way. They genuinely edged the audience off for a good while with killing Virginia. It's kind of funny. Then we have Daniel's dementia, and oof. It's really sad, and it's handled pretty respectfully by the writers and the characters, I believe. I really like it, and I think it was a good thing to give to the character. That sounds kinda odd, but I think you get what I mean. Anyway, after that we get the famous episode In Dreams and a fucking nuke goes off. Holy shit. Let's talk about the Grace stuff first. She loses her baby, and I think it's handled pretty well, and holy shit is it depressing. She is a trooper. The reason I say it's handled well is because it's very easy for something like this to be inserted into the story for the sake of edginess or comments like, oh, look how dark this is, isn't this really cool? And well, I don't get that vibe at all with her story. An example I'll use is from the Walking Dead comics. A baby is shot along with her mother, and being perfectly honest and real with y'all, I think it kinda sucks. It gives, look how dark we are, and I think if you're 12, you might be like, oh, damn, this is good. But for me, I'm just not into it at all. It doesn't help that there's a lot more stuff in the comic that is dark for the sake of it, but that's off topic. Simply put, I think it's handled well here, and Grace is one of my favorite characters. Her story after this point is also super good, but the moment we lose the baby here, you could really feel the loss. In Dreams was all about hope and how this baby will bring everyone together, and then it's hard on the heart. Also, depressing stuff aside, this is a really cool concept for an episode. When I got here in my season 6 watch and saw it was a dream episode, I was like, oh, can I just skip this or something? Is this episode even gonna matter? And then I was pleasantly surprised. It's done really well, and we see a lot of good concepts in this. The characters aged up, some cool ass effects, walkers talking, goddamn. And by the way, in case you missed it, a fucking nuke goes off after this. This season really has it all, and I think it's very appropriate that we end up at another dam. This feels like the new writer's version of the dam explosion. Just instead of a dam, it's a nuke. Let's talk about Teddy, Strand, and honestly, just everything that happens at the end here. Teddy is okay. I'm less into his character and more into what he does. I'm sure smart people could study him and his unique kind of crazy, that kind of thing, but personally, I'm good. But yeah, he does what he says he's gonna do and succeeds. Good for him. It's also cool to see that Texas being nuked is referenced in not only the Daryl show, but the Ones Who Live as well. Genuinely, any mention of fear and other things makes me happy. Anyway, I don't have much else to say on Teddy, so let's talk about Strand. Wow. We get a lot of back and forth with him in the whole series, and I think it would have been boring to keep it going. So I'm really glad they decided to stick to one side and make him into the villain for what's gonna come next. I said a lot of my thoughts in the Season 7 part of the review, but yeah. Goddamn is it a nice choice. Him betraying Morgan, sad. And then the part after that with the tower, I'm Morgan Jones, holy shit. It's one of my favorite parts in the whole series, and the speech after where they really tell us, he's the bad guy now. Amazing. It's so good. I mean, this whole finale is good. We get the Strand stuff, the Mo stuff with Morgan and Grace, Rachel. I need everyone to salute her right now. She's one of the toughest characters in the whole series. Her plan to save Mo is so fucking smart, and thinking of it is one thing, but also doing it? Damn. Infinite salutes to her. Very brave. Other things? Bear Lady rescuing Al and everyone. Like, this moment is so hype, I can't even get over how many things the finale manages to pull off. It's insane. We get all of this and more, but also we see the nuke go off. Very appropriate that the person who killed Dorie dies via fucking nuke. Also, the effect is pretty cool. I've seen some say that, oh, it's not accurate / that kind of thing, but that isn't something that bothers me. I just saw someone get turned into ash. That's just cool to me. Anyway, I love this season. Nice bookend with the end as the beginning, by the way. Overall, this was a ride, and while it's some of people's favorites, understandably, I still have 2 more seasons to rank. Let's move on to second place. Second place? Season 3. For the longest time, I thought this was my favorite season of the show. It's still really good, but after some consideration, it's only my second favorite. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we talk Season 2, let's talk about one of the best seasons of television that's out there, Season 3 of Fear the Walking Dead. Being honest though, I don't think I have too much to say. It's simply just a pretty perfect season. There are a few hiccups like Travis's death, but other than that, I really fuck with it. This season is the reason why I love Fear so much. There's a lot of cool shit, yeah, like Daniel coming back, or Troy, or the Dam storyline. But the thing that makes the season really good is the storyline with Walker and how his people are dealing with the racism from the Otto family. Racism was a conversation that I never expected in the Walking Dead universe, and I think it's handled beautifully here. It's always stuck with me, and when I get people into the show, it's usually for this season. It's like we're not being quiet about the shady shit that white people have done. I love that. And I think placing the Clark family on the wrong side was not only interesting, but also a really good way to show that. Overall, there's a lot more to say on this season, but I don't need to. The season speaks for itself. Now, let's move on to first place. In first place, my favorite season of Fear the Walking Dead, Season 2. I wonder if anyone feels the same with this placement. I love this season because it's like Season 3, simply amazing, it has wonderful pacing, the action is nice, the characters are cool, but it has one thing that Season 3 doesn't have. Travis. And the storyline he has with Chris is really good, like really. It sounds odd to say, but out of all the main family, I think Chris has the best death. Liza and Griselda go out perfectly for their characters, but I don't really feel much. They are very Season 1 characters if that makes sense. Travis, while his death is a very memorable moment and I guess realistic, death really can happen to anyone and it might not be this gigantic moment, it just isn't right. Then we have Nick and Madison in Season 4. While I might enjoy their deaths, this clearly wasn't it either. But for Chris, he dies in the perfect way and at the perfect time. Genuinely. It's depressing seeing him shot in the middle of the road even if I don't care for his character too much. And even if I don't feel for him, I still feel for Travis. God damn you, Chris, is the last thing he says to his son. That's really good. I love their storyline so much. Chris is a character looking for some direction. We see this in Season 1 where he's just going along with the crowd and he's looking at them like, am I doing this right? And after Liza's death, they really make it a point to show, hey, this kid really needs some help and attention, and he literally just isn't getting it. And then, after that, we have the story with him and the shitheads that Travis ends up killing. It all builds up to this wonderful reveal that a main character got killed off-screen. I remember watching this finale when it aired. It was crazy and I couldn't believe it. Something like that hadn't been done in the Walking Dead universe. It's one of my favorite deaths. I think it was written and executed perfectly. Goddamn. But yeah, that's why I love this season so much. That's why this is my favorite. Travis and Chris get a lot, but so does everyone else. Nick gets his signature blood trick, and Madison and Alicia, they get the bond with the hotel storyline. Madison cared and looked out for Nick more than she did with Alicia, and they have a really good conversation about it. It feels really real, and again, I love how flawed this family is. God damn, I love this show. I think that's all I have left to say. Hi, I hope you enjoyed watching this and I hope you found my ranking somewhat respectful. I figure a lot of the rankings are like the first 3 seasons then whatever after, but if you felt that way I hope you got to see some perspective on why others might feel different. I'm not trying to change your mind, but just hoping to give you some insights. In general for me, the show is a mixed bag, both parts of it. I love the first 3 seasons, but there's some stuff here that I don't like. Example, other than the storyline in Season 2 with Madison, I don't think Alicia gets a lot. She has her teenage love story with Matt, which I'm not really into. And then after that, she has a thing with Jake. I'm also not into that. There's other stuff, but in short, I think both parts of the show have their issues. But they also both have some of my favorite stuff in the entirety of the Walking Dead universe, and I am very happy to have experienced it. Thank you. If you never finished the show past Season 4A, I would still highly recommend it. I think it's a fun ride. If you watched all of it and really didn't like some stuff, I would recommend a rewatch to see if you feel different on some things. In general, I would just recommend the show. But hey, I'm Lovely. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want me to make other videos on the Walking Dead universe, well, suggest some. I'm open to any ideas. Anyway, I'm Lovely. Goodbye.